Hello, welcome to Daily Wellbeing with Gemma. So for the weekend I like to give you something a bit longer to do, something a little bit more creative. And this idea came from actually me being out on a walk and seeing a couple of different knitted things in the environment and things that people had made and placed on their walk to brighten up other people's journeys. So I want us to have a think about kind of painting pebbles, painting things. You might want to do other kinds of crafts as well, so that you can leave little mementos out and about in the local neighbourhood to kind of brighten someone's day. So the first step is to work out what it is you're going to work with, what materials. I'm going to focus on kind of pebbles and rocks. And so earlier when I went out on my walk, I was really kind of looking around to see if there was anything I spotted that I could work with. So I've picked up a couple of things. It's interesting if you can kind of get flat shapes because they're easier to paint on. I was quite pleased with this one because it's got a smooth look to it. I also found some bits of tree bark, and although it's rough on one side, this smooth side might make an interesting surface for painting. So step one is to kind of have a look on your walk for what you can work with. Actually, it was really interesting because it gave my walk a focus. I was looking at the ground, really noticing, scanning between the leaves, and it just gave me something to capture my attention so that I was, enjoying the moment and the nature. So go out and collect some things.
So there they are, all clean. We want to give them some time to fully dry out before we put any paint on.
Okay, so when you're happy that everything's dry, you'll want to get your painting area set up, and how you set this up depends on what materials you're using and who you're with. I've put down a little bit of baking paper, but if you're working with children, you might want to put down something a little bit larger, a little bit more plasticky. You might want to wear an apron. You could have your paint in a palette, or you could just squeeze it straight out of the tube depending on how confident you are. Water for mixing your brush, for cleaning your brush, a bit of kitchen roll for drying it in between. So I'm using acrylic paint, which dries a little bit more plasticky. If you use something like a watercolour, you'll probably find that it will wash off and get into the environment when you put it down outside a little bit more. It won't last as long. So to start with, you want to put your base coat colours onto all the different materials. Now for some of them you might just want to put it on the top surface. So for instance with this one, I'm only going to paint the top, I'm not going to bother with the bottom. But for some of the pebbles you might want to paint all the way around them. So you might want to paint the top surface, let that dry, turn it upside down and then paint it some more. So it's up to you. Acrylic's also quite a bold colour, so you shouldn't need to do more than one coat either. This should dry pretty solid as a background and then allow me to paint the details on the top later. You could go for solid background colours or you could mix them. So on this one here, I'm going to try and do a bit of blending. I play around with acrylics quite a bit, which is why I'm confidently just splatting it everywhere. If you're a little bit unsure, you might want to put it in a palette and take it a little bit more steady, but I'm kind of doing this quickly. So I'm going to blend these colours by kind of mixing, putting on one. Oops, I have put on too much there, but it's okay because I'll borrow some for this one as well. Ha ha ha. So put on the first colour. I didn't wash my brush in between there because I'm going to mix these anyway. Start with the two ends. I'm going to turn this one into like a sunset. Get rid of the spur. And then now where the middle is, just keep running up and down until those two colours blend together. There we go. So we want to leave those to dry for a while before we put the detail coat on. So this is a chance to clean up anything in the meantime, wash your hands. You might want to put these somewhere warm. If you're in a rush, you could get the hairdryer on them, but I'm just going to leave them out in the air to dry. So now everything's dry and I can add details. I've got a thinner brush this time, and I've also made sure to put some of my colours in the palette because with it being more detail work, we don't want to go straight onto them. These have got quite bright background colours so that when they go out in nature, they'll be easy to spot. And so think about your colour scheme in terms of, will it catch people's eye when it's out and about? And you might want to do kind of images, scenery. You might even just want to write uplifting words somehow. And whether you paint that or whether you do it with some sort of marker pen that will go over the top of the paint is up to you. So I'm just going to leave these to dry. There's quite a mixture. They don't, they're not particularly perfect, but they're uplifting. Got some nature themes like the caterpillar, the rainbow. I've gone for some scenery, and that it looks quite effective, but it's super quick and easy to do. Keywords, and again you can write these with pen or do it with paint. And simple emoji, just something that will make people smile when they're out and about on their walk. So the last thing to do is use your next walk to decide where to put them. And you might want to keep them in your garden and put them out and about for other people to discover when they're out walking. So there's a lot of fun to be had choosing objects to paint, working out what kind of decorations to put on them, and deciding where to put them when you've finished. It might start interesting conversations, obviously from a safe distance, but also kind of knowing that in your local area people will be amused and confused by lovely drawings and paintings popping up in places. So I hope you enjoy that, and do get the family involved if you've got children around as well. See you next week. Bye.